It's time to awaken and remember who you really are. It's time to live a life that you absolutely love. And it is time for the awakened being. Conversations to create change. Having real, transparent conversations that will change your world. And together, we can change the world. Hello, my friends, and welcome again to the Awakened Being, Conversations to Create Change. I'm in such a happy, super giddy mood because I'm stoked about this show. Obviously, this is Sun Diary, aka Marci Locke, and my dear friend, divine soul brother, absolute Jedi wizard, amazing being of light who I've just always been so fascinated by his multidimensional gifts and capabilities and capacity. We're dear friends who have traveled around the world together doing activation work, and we were able to drop in together on such a really cool concept and understanding of how to code yourself to your future reality, how to code to your future self. A lot of these ways that we can bypass time and processes and all the ways that we struggle and make it hard when we really can access a different consciousness and a new reality right away. So we're diving into some really cool stuff. Super excited to share with you. As always, if you haven't gotten it yet, go to marcilock.com and get the access to the activation, the ultimate life of having it all, something you can use all the time to support you in coding in your new reality, as well as check out if there's any specific activations or meditations or coachings that are there to support you in whatever you're overcoming and moving through resistance to create a greater reality in your future reality now. Also, highest recommendation is the tribe, because the tribe is awesome and has so many cool, amazing things and access to pretty much everything. So love you guys so much. Excited to dive in and of course, enjoy the show. I'm with Daniel Raphael, which I mean, I can say wizard, Jedi, alien, like all the words that people be like, what? Like that exists? I remember that's really kind of what I thought when I first met you, is like, you're like a wizard and a Jedi and a ninja and all these things. And I was like, they really do exist. That's really the best words I have to describe you. You do all sorts of ancient coding. I feel like you're someone who does what I do in very different ways. And I was sharing with Daniel this morning, it's so good for my soul to be with you, because I feel like you see me and I see you for the true multidimensionality, mystic, alien, Jedi, wizard, all those things that we are, also along with being the human that we get to share, right? Yeah. So maybe give a little bit of context of what you would frame yourself as in the work that you do and the coding and all the things that you get to dive into.
Wow, that's a big intro there. Well, it feels really good to reconnect. Yeah, essentially, I like to research and learn ancient techniques and tools, modern technologies, and put them all together to support people in awakening and creating a greater life, greater freedom, greater abundance, greater flow, and making this world a more peaceful and happier place.
Yeah.
And so from my journey of healing, which was super intense, I, met Marci along the way. And then we definitely had an instant connection there because we've both been on this wild researching hunt for years, experimenting and exploring and going deep within ourselves.
It's such a part of our system to just continually seek all the greatest ways of maximizing our humanness as well as our multidimensional gifts that we never even knew existed.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I learned from you that took me a while to integrate was actually integrating. and the way that you, once you learn something instantly, you're like, okay, let's integrate it. Let's put it on my to-do list. Let me see how I can do it now. And so it's like always be coding, right? It's the ABCs of like doing it in the moment, really.
Yes, the micro alignment in the moment that creates the macro shifts and changes. And in this moment, and this is part of like what you're doing so deeply now is bringing forth the awareness of every moment and the synchronicities of every moment into everything. But you definitely are a coding master.
I'm just getting started, but thanks. I actually consider myself an eternal student because the more I'm cracking the code, the more it's astonishingly a mystery.
Yeah. What I've loved is, as Daniel and I shared our journeys, because again, he came into my field actually as I was doing some deep healing work, and a divine sister said, I really feel like you require a healing with the divine masculine, because I had so much I was working through on trusting the divine masculine and being at peace and ease, and obviously harmonizing the sacred masculine and feminine within, which I don't even necessarily love to use those words now of masculine and feminine, because there's still a separation. Versus I'm always this beautiful balance of both. Anyways, you came into my field and I had such an intense, beautiful experience with you. I was just like, your gifts and your capabilities, I was in awe with. And then so you were like, this is what your system requires. And set up a whole day for me where I went through all this healing work. And then obviously through our connection, then I got to do some stuff with you and teach you my codes. And so it's just been like, we've been such a divine support for each other. But what I now, coming years later, the journeys we've both been on, I actually am like, oh my gosh, Daniel, we do the same thing, but in very different ways, just because we both, it's rare for me to find someone who has the gift and the capacity to see all things in the field, to see all things going on with someone. It's almost like you can read what's happening in the quantum field as well as in someone's system. And so it's like you tapped into my system at one time. It was like, this is what your soul is seeking for that alignment. It's the same thing I do with people where I'm like, I can see all the gaps into what their soul requires, their blueprint is seeking to bring it to connection and integrate into the field. And then we've gone to the depths now of like, we recode, we do all these multidimensional things as well as the integration of the human self. And yet we do it in very different ways. And so I feel like every time I'm with you, you're a Jedi master. I just want to say of like finding like all the technologies and all the things I'm like, what? Like the things that are new and exist. And you work with some of the top billionaires, millionaires, CEOs of the world. And you do the same thing. Like, what is their system requiring, and bringing those things together to help them come into alignment of more peace, bliss, joy, flow, abundance, and prosperity, and all those things. Would you say?
Well, yeah, it all came from the desire to support others and also myself, and from a lot of pain of my own extreme, healing crisis of...
Yeah. The result was what I said, but what we went through was our own healing that allowed us to be able to provide this forth for others as well. Right?
Exactly. And so everyone that's listening, that's in still healing crises, or, there's so many pearls in there, and we all have the ability to tune in to the quantum field.
Yes. We're
all connected. And it's not just a metaphor.
Yeah.
And quantum physics is catching up to ancient wisdom, where we can all just, the more we ask, the more we allow ourselves to just look and change our perspective.
Yeah. And I actually love that you bring that forth, because the truth is we all have capacity to do it.
Yeah.
There's less of us that are aware that we have the capacity to do it.
Right.
And so then continue to go on the journey to open up the capacity to do it. Because you were one of the first examples to me. I was like, you were psychic, because you could just tune into the quantum field and It wasn't till it was somewhere later that then I really understood. Like, I remember when I would have those connections to the things happening. Like, I was in the jungle with my boys and doing Aya, for instance. And I remember, like, I was still in my experience. My boys were done and they were being taken care of. Like, they were being fed by the little, family. And I remember, like, coming out, I was like, where are my boys? And all of a sudden I tapped into the quantum field and I saw them in the kitchen. I heard exactly what they were saying. I saw what they were eating. I saw the whole scene.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay. And then later, I was still in my experience. I was like, where are my boys? And I saw them in the little villa that they were in and what they were doing. So later, I come out of my experience and I'm sitting in the kitchen, me eating with my boys, and they were saying something. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. And I'm like, you were sitting here and you said this, you did this, and da-da-da. And they were like jaw dropped. They're like, Mom, are you psychic? And I was like, no, actually. And I said no, because I didn't realize I could claim that. Right. I had that ability at the time. I just said, no, I just tapped into the quantum field. Later, I realized, well, yeah, I'm psychic. We all are psychic. We all have the ability to see the information in the field and all this. So just even the fact that you said, I love and appreciate that you, like, I'm like, wow, Daniel, you have this ability, but all of us actually have these abilities, which we're talking about, is like opening up our multidimensional gifts.
Totally. And I love that story. I feel like there's a pearl there, because it's just like the mom that lifts up the car and her child's under it. But it's like sometimes these traumas or fear can trigger an extra force where we can really use our abilities.
Yeah, I was just like, I know my boys are safe. Where are they?
Yeah. And then it's knowing that we don't need those anymore to access them. And what it shows is the part that we can keep from that is that decisiveness and that just the choice that goes beyond the web of limitations or illusions that I can't do it or the doubt. And so we don't need to have that to access that decisiveness. And the shaman that I lived with from Africa, he was giving me a tutorial and like astral travel and all that. And he said, really, all you have to do is mean it 100%. And most of us have lost that and we don't really take ourselves seriously. And so reclaiming that and just deciding, right, that actually helps us.
We don't take our abilities beyond what we've been told is a construct of our humanness as a possibility.
Right. And it's tied to what we want.
Fairy tales. Wizards are, just these myths and these stories of wizards who could perform magic, etc. It's like, it's been mythology of like fairy tales versus us going, oh no, we all have the ability to literally construct all these things and use all these gifts. That's why for me, I'm like, well, yeah, we all have the ability to open our third eye and see what's in the field and energy grid into the future and receive the information and look into different timelines. And that is what we all have the ability to do. Yet when we're operating out of what we've been told, less than 5% of our DNA, simply because we haven't awakened and activated the dormant DNA within our system that has all these capacities, because everyone around us and everything around us says, no, this is what humanness is and this is what you can do. And, superheroes are rare. They're just some weird thing when I'm like, no, we're all fucking superheroes.
Yeah,
like,
everyone's a superhero.
Yeah.
You either know it or you're just starting to figure it out. But either way, I think it's also very simple. It's like choosing to love yourself, to not tolerate things that are bad for you and choose things that you want. Once you really flex that muscle, then a lot of intuition and abilities come just from that.
Yeah.
Because it's tied even deeper from like superpowers to like actually believing that you can have what you want.
Yes.
And allowing yourself to receive it instead of blocking it out of guilt or shame or fear.
Yeah. So I would love to, because you are, we're just talking about literally like becoming a wizard. And you even said like nerds are unintegrated wizards. It's like when we geek out on, it's like learning to become all that we are.
Right.
Yet I would love to give some context for people of your humanness, like a little bit of your story and the traumas that you went through to be in this place. Because you have such a powerful story. Getting to witness you from a few years ago, again, as Daniel and I had our experience together, it was just like what dropped in next was you were like, I'm going to Europe, to Germany to get my tonsils cryogenically frozen. Want to come? And I was felt into it and I was like, yeah. And so you and I went to Germany together, got our tonsils cryogenically frozen for all these Jedi reasons.
And went to a wizard city in Italy.
What opened up for us, which we weren't even planning on, is total, one of the most sacred places in the world with 4 energy grids. And we were in like sacred temple hidden in the mountains and doing the spiral dynamics and, the opening up codes. And it was just like, that's how we started our journey together.
Yeah.
And I got to witness what you were practicing and moving through in the humanness at that point. And to see you now, I'm just like, holy fuck, my friend, you just continue to impress the hell out of me with like all your amazingness. Yet your story is really powerful from the
I think it's a good foundation, because from these hardships, this system of really time traveling and using your intuition to have a more graceful and more fulfilling life came from all this. And so it started, when I was just a little boy and I was already very intuitive and I was giving therapy to my preschool teachers pretty much. I could tune into their core wounds and I was giving them compliments. That was the antidote to their limitations. Like I told my kindergarten teacher, like, your voice is sweet like honey. And every day I would like give her compliments of her voice because I knew that she was insecure about her voice. And so that's just what came naturally to me.
Yeah.
But going from there, a lot of trauma happened in different ways without going too deep into it. But I went from, a pretty genius, alive child singing and just speaking to strangers and inspiring them when I was 4 or 5 years old to developing half a dozen severe mental conditions, turning pretty much into a zombie. And I didn't feel like I had access to my voice anymore.
You shut off.
I shut off so deeply.
I think is so normal. So it wasn't until later in my life that I recognized I was an empath, having all those connections to higher alignment, etc. All the things you could say, aliens, all the ways that I was tapped in as a child. I learned to shut off pretty quickly. And I didn't even recognize till later when I opened up this, like, whoa, I was so sensitive as a child, all this was there. And I think that's really normal for when people get to this place. But I feel like it's also normal at a degree also for everyone that we just learn to shut it off at a really young age. So you shut off all of what you were naturally gifted with and who you were designed to be.
Right. Well, we don't learn about anything really about like emotions in school or how to express feelings.
Yeah. It's
in most
actually
schools.
Sit down, be quiet, listen to me. This is what you do.
Exactly.
Like, this is, you can only do this or you are in trouble.
So it's an environment that's the opposite of conducive for these sensitivities, which are our birthright and which actually can help make us stronger and more successful. And so that shut off so much of me.
Birthright.
Yeah.
That's really powerful what you just said. I just want people to take that in for a second. So it's like success is our birthright, but these gifts, these abilities that give us so much freedom and access to everything that we want to create as our reality is our birthright.
It is. And I think success, if we redefine it from making a lot of money, for example, or being famous, to really fully being ourselves and expressing and receiving ourselves, then that's really the true success.
I believe success, my framework of success is completely fulfilled and satisfied. Like I'm in absolute peace. Peace is my priority.
And so the more you use your intuition, the more successful you can be, because your intuition is simply you receiving higher wisdom and guidance from, you could see it as a greater part of yourself, right?
The truest, highest
divine
self,
intelligence that we're all connected to. So I lost that as a child. I closed off, and I literally went around thinking no one liked me or loved me. I forgot what love even was. I closed off, every day going to school, going home, and just getting more and more traumatized, really, like for years and years and years. It compounded into just becoming a ghost in a shell and being put on meds, and psychiatrists and all that got worse and worse and worse. Finally had a dream, and I saw this hill at this festival. On top of this hill, I was told to go there, and I was scared. I woke up like, oh my God, like this wasn't just a dream. It changed my life. Like for days, I was just kind of in shock. So it just touched me in the deepest level possible. And I decided to go, and I had like social anxiety at the time. I was scared to even go to grocery stores. Like I was so sensitive and so lost. And I decided to go to this festival with thousands, tens of thousands of people. And it was already a pretty traumatic experience going there.
Leap from, it was a huge leap. Grocery store
it was a big leap, but I had to follow the dream. At the end of the festival, like I was leaving with my friend who, it was a crazy experience we had there actually. But as we were leaving, there was a 6'5" guy on top of the hill with a sign that said free energy healing. And I was like, what is this? And my friend wanted to leave. She was pressuring me to go. And I just said, wait, just give me 5 minutes. I need to try this. And I closed my eyes. A few minutes later, everything was different. Wow. I felt like I was back in my body. I was expanded in this beautiful field of energy. I could feel everyone around me. I was present. I thought it was enlightened. It felt like such a contrast, but it was just the very beginning of the journey. That changed everything. And I changed my whole priorities. Like, I want to learn how to do this. I want to keep healing myself. And that started my spiritual journey over a dozen years, living with shamans, studying with masters.
Yeah, you've been all over the world.
Hundreds of healers, tools, technologies, crazy things.
It's like,
hooked up to my brain for a week.
You're like, let's go get our tonsils cryogenically frozen. I'm like, yes, I'm down. I'm up.
I mean, that's really what it was. Like, I had to learn how to like give hugs again and feel love. And it was like I was a baby in a lot of ways. And yet I had these abilities that were coming back on. So it was this interesting dichotomy of, started being flown around the world and yet just barely cracking the code of intimacy and things like that. And so it's been a pretty unique decade going through this journey, and I'm still definitely on it and learning about intimacy, connecting deeper, because for most of my life, those muscles not only were turned off, but were backwards in a way where all these extra fears and traumas were tacked on.
Were operating.
It was kind of like solving Rubik's Cube for others, where thousands of people, even like I was giving thousands of free sessions, just gifted sessions for a lot of people that couldn't afford it, or just as gifts that I was inspired to give. It was like I got faster at it, and I started seeing patterns and seeing how can we reprogram people's deepest issues and belief systems. And in some ways I was really like upgrading more slowly myself, and I got frustrated. But then I saw this quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, who at the end of his life kind of went crazy. I think someone asked him like, how could you help all these people but couldn't really break fully yourself? Right? Yeah. And he was like, just because I have the key to your lockbox doesn't mean I have the one for my own.
Right. It's because it's a journey, and we all get to support and share with each other. It makes me think of that, how with like Wayne Dyer died of, was it lung cancer? It's like, something like that. Like, so it's like, he too had his emotional, because we know that every emotion in the body becomes a physical symptom. And even though all the work that he did to heal everyone else, and we do that as a society, we judge based on this outside thing, instead of recognizing this is for all of us, it's part of our journey. The things that we get to experience allowed him to also learn how to overcome all those things to be able to share with others.
Exactly.
As well as still have his own journey that he sought after teachers, etc.
We have unique templates, and that's why we're here. And we have powerful aspects and codes. And it's both. It's perfectly shaped. So looking back, waking up more to the present with synchronicities, you can see it now.
Yeah.
The perfect template, not just for your evolution, but for the unique gifts and codes that you get to express in such unique spectrums, from the pain, the joy, the caverns in your heart that were carved from the experiences unique to
this is
the
why
story.
I feel like this is what shifted for me to be so in love and appreciative of the holy human journey. Where before it was like, I was fighting the human because I didn't feel safe in this world either. And like tapping into like, I just want to get off this world. I want to go home. And really becoming to awareness that, oh my God, my beautiful multidimensional self sought out this school, this earth, divine, sacred discovery playground, because I could experience every emotion and I could play with all the things that I didn't have access to here. And so it becomes a part of like, it's the allness. It's the beauty of all of it.
Exactly. And it's like a pendulum. You can fight it. And I did as well, because I was like, just trying to like fix every part of myself. You know, that's kind of a trap that happens, and definitely took me on a journey, like a healaholic, I would say. But it's like, you can use the pendulum and ride it. And that's where this systems that's coming through called dream porting.
Let's talk about, because let's get into what we really want to share, obviously, is like, first off, you just hear us going off about multidimensionality and wizardry and all these things and the human experience. And what we really want to bring forth for people is the human integration of the way to connect what is available. Because most people, like we said, they're like, only this is available as a human. And we're like, no. There's all these other things that are available that we bring forth into our human integration to allow us to have it. And so you and I were talking about tools that we both have kind of decoded and used. And you were sharing some things with me this morning. I was like, that's the language for what I've been experiencing, but I didn't know how to put it together. And you had specific codes to it that opened up. I was like, that's what it is. So what we really want to share with people is some of these tools that bring like a whole nother awareness, or take it to another degree of, I want to say, coding or receiving the result that they want, magnifying what's in their field now to be able to do it. And dream porting is one of those. That was the language you were bringing forth to it.
Yeah, definitely. And basically, we have subconscious blocks, we have traumas from the past, and we can work on them in a holistic way instead of just looking at one and trying to get like surgery on it, and use even our limitations and use everything in an empowering way. I started experimenting with this, and about a month ago, I went through a sequence where I asked my future self where I want to be, and received guidance, kind of like Morpheus telling Neo what to do in the Matrix, right? And I drew this picture and wrote down some dates and things to do on different days. And not a lot of it actually made sense fully. But every day, like the synchronicities, the miracles, the manifestations that happen, and the insights just blew my mind.
So I want to clarify one thing. It wasn't your thinking brain going, okay, on this day, I should do this. It like kind of downloaded to you.
It all came through at once.
That's what I mean. Like it was like almost like you asked and you opened up and allowed to receive. And it was like, you said like, do a water ceremony. Okay. And you just wrote that down. Do this.
In under 5 minutes, the whole thing came through, both a very interesting image of the next 3 weeks of my life with like a door opening and wings, and then like a arrow launching up through a portal into a castle. It was all, showing me multiple meanings through that abstract way of visualizing it, and then writing down dates and things to do and just titles of different days that didn't make sense at first, but then blew my mind of how accurate it was. And it basically allowed me to align with a certain timeline, because we can choose. We have all these different timelines we can choose from.
Infinite timelines exist.
Right. And so it's like choosing the most optimal timeline for me. And what happened was literally miracles. From, I wanted, for example, to start a challenge to get in the best shape possible and really refocus on my body. But I went to this one gym that was kind of far away from my house, and they had this weird like fingerprint facial recognition technology you have to go through every time. And just like, it was a weird vibe. I was like, I don't want to go through this gym.
Even connected to the energy and said, this doesn't fully support me.
And so I just decided like...
So your mind was like, it wasn't your mind going, oh no, okay, I go to the gym, Like, I just want people to hear the deeper
Exactly. That's a good question. And so I just decided like, I'm still sticking to wanting a personal trainer.
I want to support my body.
And to work out, but I don't want to go to this gym and I don't want to go to the other gyms. Mm-hmm. So I closed those options and no longer tolerated that as an option. And then a couple days later, Mike Chang, who
just did a show with
like the number one, fitness YouTube star a few years ago, he basically like took a break for a few years and then came up with this new system.
Flow training.
Which is beyond amazing. And
you were on the islands when we did it the other day.
I saw that on Instagram.
So good.
So I'm actually starting today. And he offered to train me for free for 30 days, one-on-one.
Yeah.
Which is like, he doesn't even really do that for anyone. I didn't even ask him. Like, he just felt inspired to. And so I already had this vision. Let's break it down. I wanted to do a 30-day challenge and I wanted some support. And then I chose to not settle for something that didn't feel right for me.
And we always say, you get what you tolerate.
Exactly.
And that's a part of us seeing that and we can dive into that a little bit more, but that's a part of us seeing that if we just go, if our mind, and this is the biggest thing I want people to hear, is that when we try to just think it through and plan it based on what our construct of consciousness knows is the possibilities, we close ourselves off of the infinite possibilities that are so much greater and grander for us when there's the trust and allowance of all that support. You're like, all right, like as I tune in, it's like, I'm feeling called to this. I'm feeling called to support my body.
Yeah.
And then, so the things pop into the field. And when you energetically go, this doesn't feel 100% alignment to me, but the mental begin when someone else would be like, okay, well, this is my option. I have this gym. I guess I come here, where you're like calling for something else that is greater. So you kept that. You said no to that. I don't tolerate this. I know that it gets to be like, what is there? And what comes and drops in is something so much greater than you could have ever planned out.
Exactly. Or trying to control.
Yeah. Yes.
It just happens. And so it's looking at it like a tesseract or a series of rules in the quantum field, and you get to choose what you're going to tolerate or not tolerate, and then surrender, be more in the feminine to allow that to come through. You get so much more miracles than your mind can actually fathom. And so you can either learn the hard way, which I've done plenty of times, and then even like a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, and then, but then it blocks something even better. And then finally you're like, I had enough of this. Yeah. And then you have to like do the inner work, and then you can manifest something else. But then it's been hard on your body, and you've lost some confidence, some juju from like settling for something that wasn't
because it becomes your norm. It becomes your idea that, well, like this idea that I can't have it all. It's a either or is how we've been programmed. I can either have this or I can have that.
Exactly.
Versus expanding into and embracing and receiving that as this divine being who is just like, I'm able to receive whatever I want. Again, I feel like this is the layers that we go to when we understand all that we are. We go, oh, I can have this and this and this and this.
It's moving from or to and.
And programming versus an either or. And the other thing that I want to just break down that people hear from what you said that's a nugget is that you said, allow the feminine to open up to receive. So it's like, okay, this is what the inspired action in alignment, the masculine, if you put it as that, because the masculine is the doing energy. The masculine in alignment is operating from an intuition inspired action. It's not okay, so if you go,
control,
I feel like I want to work out or I want to have a greater body experience. Your mind goes, okay, let me plan that out. Like, this is what I'm going to have to do. And it comes from a force. Let me think it through structure. That's not inspired action. That's actually, okay, what do I have to force? When you go, okay, like, this is what I'm feeling I want to experience. And let me open it up. And then it comes through as like the inspired action is the masculine. So then you took inspired action and each step you're feeling into what does the energy actually go to align to that then lets the next thing drop in. So that inspired action and the 7 to 10 thing, like you said, most people go, well, like you'd go to the gym and be like, well, this will work. Catching those little things of this will work or it's okay. We notice that the energy is not ideal. And when we continue to accept that level of energy, we continue to accept that level of experience.
Exactly. Yeah. And I call that agreement fields. You can program your agreement fields and then they just stay with you and things automatically just shift. People that are not aligned, they can't literally just come in your field. They'll just move out. Sometimes like falling outs happen, but I saw this meme the other day. It's like God got them out of your life so you can move forward, so you can reframe it that way.
Rejection is protection.
Protection is
because
protection.
If someone rejects you or they don't totally attune with you, or we get haters, etc., that's just because they're not meant to be in my field. They're not open to all that I get to create. And when you're saying so even with agreement fields and what you're tolerating, I want to kind of come back to even dream porting a bit, and that it's you utilize this ability to tap in to the field, tap into all right, your higher self. This is what I'm feeling called to, or maybe break that down a little bit more, how you were going there with you tapped in and you said, what are the things that I get to be aware of or go or do to timeline hop now?
Yeah, exactly.
Timeline into different route. And you instantly it wasn't your mental brain was you just received this vision or this feeling or this idea or this awareness that you get to then trust. You're okay, water ceremony. What is that? Okay, the next day it's this. The next day it's this. Maybe go off of.
Yeah, definitely. So, the first step is really tuning into what you really want. Mm-hmm. And I like starting off with, maybe a few weeks, a month. So in a month from now, what would be your ideal life, right? And it could be several factors: where you're working, your body, your relationships to, your abilities. How is your mood? How is your flow of your day, right? So it's you're a DJ. You can choose to tweak different things. What's not operating at the highest
level that you get to become more in alignment to? Or
so it's choosing, and listening to what is your ideal timeline. And if, let's say a month from now, and then you just receive and you ask your future self, you visualize you in the future, and it's reverse engineering it, exactly. But it's actually intuitive, where you're not using your mind to try to do it, because your mind is operating from the current version of yourself, which is still limited.
Yes.
And so you're not even really there. You want to be in the perspective you're already there.
Yeah.
So, and people might listen to this and be well, how do I do that? And I remember the African shaman I lived with, when I would ask questions like that, he would just say, don't ask how, just do it.
Inspired action.
In a weird way that actually can help, because sometimes it's you just shift your perspective to that.
Yeah.
Just know that you can is the first step, and then allow yourself to just look and just allow information to come. You just sit there
and then open up
and just open up and see what comes through.
The connection there for people to understand is when we try to figure out how, we're using our mental programming, which is just based on your current self and what you see as only possibilities versus the
which is linear as well.
Don't see linear versus non-linear,
and it doesn't work linear; it's quantum.
Yes.
So if you change your perspective to open up to your future self and truly allow it, you're going to instantly get information from that perspective. Yeah. So all this intuition really is allowing yourself to tune in. It's you have a ray of light, and you can look at it from this way or this angle. Mm-hmm. And so you just create the parameters, and then you surrender and allow that specific ray of information.
Because you put it out into the quantum field. I want to just dissect, which I love this, is the difference between this and pre-paving, because a lot of times, so much of what people are operating out of that are trying to become awakened, or they're desiring a different experience, they're operating out of very surface tools of self-empowerment.
Right.
So if someone, pre-paving would be one of them. And, it's something I used in the past until I understood there was greater ways, that this was very surface, very tiny. It's envisioning the future, but envisioning the future. So when people go, okay, I'm going to visualize what I want, there is power that your mind sees that and focuses on that. But what I always talk about is that there's such a different disconnect in the energy of it matching, because your body, yourself is first off, the idea that the logical construct is I can't have that. I don't know how that's going to happen. I'm not aligned to having that or receiving that. Or there's even okay, I'm just going to envision this happening. And that's a pre-paving coming from who you are now.
Right.
What you're talking about and what we're opening up for people is, let's actually open up to the infinite possibilities that are beyond myself. And you can tap into that access and to that intuition, to that gift, and then receive from there. And then there gets to be the just trust and surrender that this is what came through. Now, how do I allow it? There's no let my mind prepay
linearly project what I think it's going to look like from this level of consciousness, which is limited. Yeah. And so you can see it that could serve in level 1. You prepave, you could see it as building a cement road that you think is the best way to straight line to get you to your destination. But then you're making a lot of assumptions. Mm-hmm. And when you actually surrender, you can teleport quantumly from one city to another, so to speak, to where your destination is. And to teleport, really, it's about first shifting your whole operating system. Mm-hmm. Part of it is I needed to shift my operating system and upgrade it to get to where I want it to be. now, a few weeks ago. And so to do that, I had to change my subconscious landscape as well.
Yep.
And so besides using our intuition and tuning into what we need to do, we can use, from simple things like designing or buying a new outfit for yourself that represents this new archetype that you're stepping into,
this
to making a new
playlist we talk about, right?
Yeah, it's those subtleties. It's the art of living, right? We talked about the science a bit. It's both.
Yeah.
And the art is just as important, if not more important, because in that play, in that imagination, Albert Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge, right? That's what's really holding the frequencies that we can magnify and attract what we really want and help us awaken to a new level, because we're in one story, we want to go to a different story, and we're in this transition. How do we crossfade? How can we, it's time to end this belief. It's time to end this pattern. Why don't we do a ritual, like burn something in a fire, right? But then what if we also plan like, okay, this playlist that I'm going to start listening to right afterwards and have dinner with this amazing friend. And then the next day I'm going to wear my new outfit. And then I'm going to go spend a day in nature to like celebrate.
I'm speaking into this now. And
so it's like you're planning a movie. You're creating your own movie. I call it packing your lunch, just like your mom used to pack your lunch when you were a kid. You're packing your lunch for your future self, so to speak. You're planning out things based off intuition that will help you gracefully shift different parts of your belief systems and your whole subconscious identity over a period of time. And it's kind of like you got to pick your lessons, pick your battles, so to speak, because, you can't do it all at once.
Yeah.
And so it's tuning into like, okay, today I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to tweak this. And the more you can do it in a creative and fun way, the easier it is for you to surf on those waves, because we're actually surfing through timelines. And you can actually, like a dolphin that pings with sonar into the ocean, we can actually do that and ping
all our timelines. I know. And so this is where I love geeking out on this with you, because we both do a lot of timeline hopping, timeline work. That's why like I can have a weekend VIP with one of my clients or, doing one of my retreats. And it's like, to the human mind, we think it's a process, a long journey. And most people will spend their life barely moving forward on that dial, and most people are stuck in a place of like, it's less than 3% of people that actually achieve their goals. And those still are even the creators of the world versus the ones who are channeling and working through this thing of like life happening through and being a whole other level of experience that we get to experience. In some of these experiences, what my reflection is for people is a lot of times you're like, everything shifts and changes in a tiny amount of time. And it's like, couldn't have even ever been possible to heal those amount of things in lifetimes, doing it the way that we've been taught to do it. And this is because we can go back into the field, timeline hop. And if you choose in this moment now, it's like owning that archetype, that identity, and then integrating the little micro alignments of your behaviors, your patterns, your thoughts, your things that you experience to then that is the reality. And then what we're talking about is we geek out into like reaching into all the timelines. I was telling you how sometimes because I'm tapping into other timelines in all these different things, like sometimes I'm like, is that in this one right now? Or am I in a different timeline? And knowing you can shift any timeline to be the timeline you're experiencing now.
Right. As you start putting some of these into practice more and more, you'll start seeing life as just hopping from one timeline to another several times or more a day. And this became so intense for me, like during this dream porting sequence. And I planned like the landing of it to be at Nusa, this beautiful island off of Bali. And I was also like not eating food for 3 weeks, just doing liquids like juices and broths and teas. So I decided to eat my first dinner and celebrate with some of my favorite people that night. And it grounded me so much. And I was like, whoa, like I'm a person like on the sand, and here are you. And I'm eating food, because it got to a point where I literally was just feeling like it was almost tangible, like shifting, just having a thought and knowing almost how that would influence the next moment, because you can feel it. It's like different levers on a spaceship that you're holding. You get that sensitive the more that you integrate this.
I first want to even let you be able to go how that ended up. Like you dream ported, all these things were going to happen.
Right.
And how they aligned and happened and brought you to like, and I love how you're saying like, okay, this is when this happens. Like I'm owning this timeline. I'm bringing this forth now.
Right.
And letting all these things show up. All the things that you wrote down just showed up.
Yeah. Well, the keys, I shared a couple of them so far. And I think that it's a balance of being confident and really like knowing that you can do it and being extremely humble and staying in the mystery, like that eyes of wonder from a child.
Yes.
Because we have to also listen in each moment to the synchronicities,
that is
all the signs that are communicating with you to give you feedback on the reality that you're co-creating.
Yep.
And so
that's the synchronicity that we were talking about.
That's the synchronicity, and it's key. It's about staying in also the feminine principle and staying in the surrender. That's really the most powerful place to be.
So let's break down that tool of synchronicity mapping, because a lot of people, I know years and years ago, it was like, I got like a deja vu or whoa, synchronicity. And we thought it was like so rare and few and far in between. You and I were laughing today at how when people are experiencing synchronicities happening in life, even once a day or, once a week or a couple times a day, they're on the path, but that's like beginning the opening and awakening to where we live, where like literally every moment is divine synchronicity. Everything
becomes one tapestry of synchronicities.
It's like, and that's that knowing for me, my mantra every day. The thing that I attune to in the timeline I exist in is that I joyfully serve the divine and humanity while floating in a constant state of bliss, held by the universe, taking care of all the details to effortlessly receive all I desire and require. And so it's like I'm floating. I'll have the things will just effortlessly come to me that are leading me to the greatest, grandest adventure, and the universe takes care of it all, which is the divine synchronicities.
Exactly.
It's all just effortlessly comes together. It's like I didn't even have to make a decision. I just have opened up that field of infinite possibilities coming. And so synchronicities are all the time. And that's actually what we see as our normal state of being and our divinity. Yet most people are far from that. So let's bring that forth into like how you're saying, like when you become aware and pay attention to each synchronicity and how you then magnify that to see what's really there for you, that most people just like, oh, that was weird. Oh, that was interesting. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened.
Yeah. So I see synchronicities as the compass that gives us continual feedback, so we can micro adjust, mega adjust.
Yes.
And it's the language of the universe. It's the language of reality. It speaks to you in dreams. It speaks to you in animals that fly by you sometimes, in patterns.
Everything. I'm like, I just saw this. Let me look up the connection to that animal and what its message is for me, and numbers and everything.
And what's cool is people are doing this more and more. They're Googling, oh, what does this animal mean?
Yeah.
And oh, it's 11:11 right now.
Yeah.
And what if we can go
it's
deeper?
It's 2:23. Like
exactly, and not just be like wowed by like this little moment, but seeing the pattern with all the different synchronicities throughout the day. And even going back like, whoa, this song played a year ago when I was going through this amazing breakthrough, and now it's playing again. Because every time we have a thought, every time even a song plays,
there's a connection.
It's a connection there. There's invisible thought streams that are anchored in our subconscious, anchored in the frequency now of the quantum field. And so the more that we get nerdy a little bit and look at these different patterns, which we weren't taught to do as a child, most of us, the more that we can actually have empowerment to really have the best life and attract miracles, because we're listening to the feedback, and we're not, the universe is like whispering at us and we're not listening, and sometimes it has to yell at us. And then we'll have to learn, one lesson. It might take 10 years of a lot of pain, but the more we listen to the synchronicities, the more graceful our life gets.
Easy and graceful.
It's so much better.
Dramatic and hard. So because you have a choice to either learn through hard, struggle, force, fight, all those things, or like, again, when you're like, oh, everything's okay. It's just feedback for me to go, oh, interesting. Let me tune into this even greater degree. And I feel like that is the integration codes that I learned and that have made such a big difference in my life, is because to me, and what I want people to hear is every single thing is sacred. Every single thing is energy. Every single thing is connected. I believe every single interaction is for a reason. Everything. I have people that, it's like the tiniest little interaction or something from me massively shifted their life, that it was like, I wouldn't have been aware that little tiny thing. There's a super amazing being in California who owns the Wow Temple. I got to meet up with him and some people in California recently. He was telling me how about the year before we were at a dinner, and I said one thing. That was my only interaction with him. I wasn't even aware of it. It massively changed his life and how he did this, and then he bought this and da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like everything is designed. But see, when people can actually understand that from an energetic level, like you said, every single thing has an energetic line or connection. It reminds me of like, as I open up more of my capabilities, seeing the quantum field, seeing the energy grid, the grid around the planet, and all these things, just knowing we're all energy. We're literally like 0.00001% matter, and we're all energy. How that is actually the reality versus the illusion. and how that's where we can use energy gridding, even with these synchronicities and the timelines to go like circuit energy. As we do our breath work, as we do things, we're circuiting energy into things. So it's like you and I did Hape activation the other night. Like we felt into and cleansed anything in our system. And then we're putting the energy and speaking into like the timeline. Like I always then code with the field a frequency, or like I'm like divine unconditional love imprinted in every cell of my being, atom, subparticle. I'm transmuting that out to the entire field around me, that everywhere I go, I am the essence of divine unconditional love, that people feel that frequency. And now I'm transmuting that into my field, and I'm requesting from the universe, like every detail taken care of, and I can actually code into the timelines this feeling in this field. All of this is combined. And now you come back to like synchronicity. So like how you're seeing those synchronicities, how do you go deeper with that?
Right. Well, one of the categories I mapped out are interesting things that strangers just tell me on the street. So I'll just meet someone and they'll give me like a sentence, but it's like, why did they just say that word? I was just, it's a theme. So it's like,
or it pops into your field.
Exactly.
But most people aren't aware. Oh, that popped in and that popped in. Oh, this keeps popping in my field.
The universe is trying to tell you something.
Yeah.
And so the faster and the more we can make these pattern recognitions, the more we have metacognition, which is the ability to really look outside of ourselves and learn and grow faster from what we're doing and see how we can better it and upgrade and learn the lessons. And so it's funny. It's really like the more we kind of nerd out on these spiritual principles, the way the universe works and all the details of our lives.
Yeah.
Like my friend said, Ryan Fontana, he said, a nerd is simply an unintegrated wizard. So, you move from nerd to wizard because then you actually have the ability and the gifts to really shift and DJ your reality and co-create it in so many fun and beautiful ways.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Kabbalion, as it talks about the wizardry, I guess you could say, of a hermetic who studies the Kabbalion, which is the laws of the universe. And they were saying like the swing of polarity, and as you were saying, you can be swung back and forth. Most humans are like, I'm swung from this, I'm swung to that, because they don't understand they can control the energy, or I'll say, control is not even the right word, because whatever you control is controlling you, but they can actually understand the laws of the universe and the energy and all these abilities, and they can play with it, and they can find themselves coming to a neutrality to when they direct the swing. They direct the energy where it goes. And so those are the ancient wisdoms of like mystery schools, and all those things are like, we see the bigger vision of all that we are, and how do we utilize this to be able to, like you're saying, with synchronicities, it's following our future self-guidance.
Yeah.
It's the future self and all the things that you've designed that were what you wanted to learn, to understand, and to play with it, et cetera, and dance with. When we follow that, we allow that, and that can be the ease and the grace. That also means in our human experience, we're like, ooh, I feel this, like what's here, versus in a shutdown way, it's like, oh, I feel this. I don't want anything to do with this. I'm going to run for this. And I'm not paying attention to everything around me because I think I have to control life and it's got to be this way and I have to know how to do this. And this is what most people are living in a place of such a small capacity of their abilities as well as what they could be experiencing in life, compared to allowing so much more of the infinite possibilities to exist that still come from a place of like, ooh, I would desire this, or this would feel really good. And like, I couldn't even ever have imagined living the life I live, or being an alien, wizard, Jedi, all these things that we talk about and do and have experienced, like would have never been in my awareness, an inkling of my awareness of coming from that place. So it became like following that and moving through that and being able to allow that more and more.
Yeah. And so it's moving from being in someone else's dream into really living and creating your own dream as part of the greater collective dream of a beautiful paradise planet that we're striving for. And so I think gamifying it too is the last key, is making it fun. There's so much work to do. Sometimes you're looking at all these layers and all these things.
Well, when you look at it from being broken and like you did in the past, there's so much to heal. I have to heal. And now I think we both operate in a place of like, I am healing all the time. Like I am just in the joy of it. And yet it's like, it's a game. It's a fun game that we get to play.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
I love that. Gamify, and have all the fun too. So, we're talking about getting to bring forth more of these codes, more of this funness, more of the gamifying factors of like recoding into the field and some of the things that we do, even as we go to India. You and I are talking about, we're actually going to be going to India coming up next spring and bringing a lot of our high-level clients and fun, badass, beautiful other Jedi friends, etc., and getting to go through these deep experiences and doing this coding into the field and all these fun things. What else are you feeling like you're really up to that is something that we can tune into and be aware of?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to start sharing more information on the dream porting system soon. Mm-hmm. I'm just tweaking it and experimenting more. I have several retreats a year usually, and a few slots open for one-on-ones, but I'm really focusing more on videos and helping these codes and the codes from a lot of different people to come out to the world in a new way and animating them and really helping people see them in a simple and practical way so they can integrate them.
I think that's one of the beautiful gifts that I appreciate about you, and I also see as just part of the codes that we carry and share, is it's always like taking some of the multidimensionality, all the things that are so woo-woo, cray-cray out there to people, and yet bringing them into a very simple understanding of how to apply into your moments and apply into your life. I mean, I think that's what you and I both do with clients is like, we're like, all right, we see the whole thing. This is what's the connections of what's missing. And how do we bring that into the now? Mm-hmm. Like even just some of these tools that we're talking about is when you can simply go, oh, that just happened. I'm going to be aware of that. Like it really reminds me of the story that I told you about the Himalayas. Remember that the synchronicity. And this was the thing that was, I had somehow heard or received. Every interaction is for a reason. And I just was like, that grounded into me and imprinted to me in such a way that I was like practicing, not moving beyond everything, but really seeing every single moment is for a reason. So I could start to be aware of being present in every moment and practicing presence at such another degree to be like, what does this moment have for me? Why am I interacting with this person? What is here for me? And sometimes it's what we're meant to give someone else. And it's a contract and a code that we have for somebody else, even to be a smile. Because we're so energetically sensitive to everything that's happening. In the past, it was almost like there was a bit of a guard. There was a bit of a separation to humanity. It's interesting to find ourselves in this place where like, I want to save the planet. I love everyone. But don't touch me. You know, like too much energy. Like because we could feel the collective, we could feel what people's systems were experiencing. And I had to go through my own journey of learning to support myself with that or not attached to certain things. And now I feel like I've arrived at this place where literally I'm in love with every human. I'm in love with every experience. I love, like, I get into a cab or have a driver pick me up and I'm like, in the past, I would have just been like, oh, I'll use this time to like tune in with my team. Now I'm like, what's your name and what's your story and how are you? And I'm like, this interaction with this being is for a reason. Totally. And I'll always end up getting like some beautiful nugget from them as well as I'm in to share information with them. A lot of deep
Uber rides.
And I know, like I've had, as I coded into the field that I was like, I speak it into my frequency waves. One of the multidimensional gifts I use and I teach people on manifestation is frequency wave activation. You have the ability to, even if you hold a field for 16 seconds, you can blast out a frequency wave. I have frequency wave activations that are my own personal ones I listen to every day. And it's how I manifest the biggest things in such a short period of time because there's no timeline. It's like, it's just being blasted out into the timeline. And one of those is that we get guided and directed and effortlessly the universe taking care of the details to create the most sacred portals and spaces for me. So wherever I get called to go around the world, I have we're sitting in one right now. Everyone's always like, whoa, your place. I'm like, yeah, like the universe just set this up for me. I always, wherever I've been around the world, I get supported and the coolest beings end up showing up into my field, totally taking care of me. Just like Mike is here and he's going to train you. You know, like the coolest divine beings that either are from the space that take care of me, like set up all my adventures, take me everywhere, and make sure I'm totally supported, taken care of. And they're like light beings. They speak consciously. And it's like, but yet they might be someone in India who's running the retreat center. I have now this man in my life, his name's Swami, who is like soul family to me. And I ended up giving him all this money to support his journey. And he was totally supportive of me. And I was just like, oh, there's my family. But there's no story of separation now of like, I can only be around certain, I mean, of course, we're very aware of our energy field and who we get to be around. But what I'm saying is when I realized that every interaction was for a reason, I opened myself up, again, to be love in all experiences and to receive love from all people, that I found that this driver is here for a reason. Whether I have a contract and a code to give him that support his life, as well as what am I here to receive from him? You know, and it's like I end up in the coolest conversations with Uber drivers. All beings.
Presence is key.
Presence.
And you learn the actual lesson.
Exactly.
So many of them, you stack them and then there's a lot more room for fun and manifestations of what you do want.
Yeah.
Because you're listening and getting the feedback.
Yeah. And a lot of us are just guarded to that because we don't recognize.
It's like life is happening to me.
Yeah.
Like a victim instead of through me. And then we move to as me.
Mike and I just talked about this on that show. It's like those phases of consciousness. When we recognize every single moment. So I just really want people to hear that every single moment is a sacred gift. Every single moment is intentional. It is intentionality. When you practice presence, again, there's no planning forward. It's like practice the presence of what is this here for? It brings forth so many things that you could have never seen because you're actually willing to allow them and see them. Should I share that story about the Himalayas?
Sure.
It was like Daniel and I were dropping in and somehow we started talking about, and this is why we're going back to India. I was going to India and all this is happening, but I was telling him how that dropped into my field about the interaction of every single moment. And I was in the Himalayas up in some sacred portal space with Swamiji, who is the reincarnated master of Mahavatar Babaji. And he's like, they're like, go down around this lake because it's going to open up neural pathways and then we'll just meditate. Well, I'm about to go down to walk around the lake. And all of a sudden this Indian gentleman is like, come with me. I'm like, well, okay. So I go to walk with him and I start walking with this man who tells me that he is one of Swamiji's students or teachers, master teachers, where he teaches Swamiji's students and he's been doing for like 30 plus years. And he starts to just drop in like sharing this information for me. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Wow. And I told Daniel how I noticed that all of a sudden all these other people were rushing past us. And I look up and I see that Swamiji is on the hill. It looks like Indian Jesus on the hill in this white robe. And all of a sudden what instantly said is like, oh my God, I want to get to Swamiji. Like I'm missing out. And then I remembered, wait, what is this moment for? I'm interacting with this person for a reason. What am I here to learn? What is this for? And so as we're walking around the lake, it got to be, we're at the very last part of the lake. And he tells me that when Swamiji touches your head, it's like getting blessed and shifting your system so much. It's like meditating and fasting for a year straight. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I want Swamiji to touch my head. If I hadn't received that information, I wouldn't have known the access to that or the possibilities. And he dropped a lot of wisdom with me around the lake that if I would have been like, all right, cool, dude, and I would have rushed off, I would have missed. And not to mention that, so then I go up the hill and there's this woman walking in front of me. She's going so slow. My human self was like, like I wanted to go around her. And then I remembered, that's right. Everything is divine timing. Everything is for a reason. And I brought myself back to presence and I just like, I'm look at the beautiful grass as I'm taking an inch by inch step up the hill. And I get up to the top of the hill and I told you that an enlightened master has to be very aware of the energy they give people. Even looking at someone shifts their system, touching them. So it's like he was literally like, people would come up and he's like, you go there, like putting them on the outskirts of this group of people. And I arrive, and again, all in like the peaceful energy that I was, and it's all divine timing. And I want people to hear that. It wasn't like a let me think I got to do this or force myself to that. I was actually in the presence. And he says, come. And he like calls me forth to him, sits me down, and he sits me down right next to the other spiritual master guru that's there. And he finishes doing that, and he comes and he sits down right behind me, and his foot is in my bum. Like his toes are touching my bum. And if you know anything about gurus and enlightened masters, the energy comes through their feet. And so it's like people will bow down and touch their foot just to get a touch of their energy. And for probably an hour and a half, 2 hours, as we chanted, we sang, he told stories of teachings that were being like transcribed or however you say that, translated. It's like being with Jesus. The whole time we're doing that, I'm receiving energy coming through his foot into my ass. I'm like being recoded. And then at the end, when he got up, he touched the forehead or the head of the other spiritual guru that was there, leaned down and touched the head of the person next to me that was their daughter, actually, and then went to walk away. And in my mind, I was like, please bless me, please bless me, please bless me, please bless me, please bless me. And he literally stops, looks back at me, looks down, leans down, and he touches my crown, kisses my forehead, grabs my hand, kisses my hand, and then holds my hand as he goes to walk away. And so it's like, I wouldn't have even known about any of that if I hadn't been in the moment to receive what was there, as well as then asking for that and seeing that. Like the moment he told me that, I was like, I want Swamiji to touch my head. Like, bless me, my friend. And like receiving that to come forth. And I feel like there's so many things in that I would have never received, I would have never known if I wasn't allowing the synchronicities to be present. I was like, oh, this guy wants me to come with him. And the universe just being like, oh, you ready for the next portal of information that you're calling for? We're going to drop this person into your space, etc. So there's just so many gold nuggets, which I appreciate so much I appreciate so much that we can go here, because I feel like part of the gifts that I've been able to receive is connecting the multidimensionality to the human. And all of it being glorious, and all of it's like the divine beauty is in all of it. The divine beauty is in like the pain and the traumas you went through as a child, but your story goes so much deeper than you even got to share. And I just honor you so much for the gift that you are, the journey that you've been on. And I'm just blessed, I feel like, to have witnessed even you over the last several years, from when we first connected and what you brought forth for me, the codes that you had for me and the codes that I got to share with you. We shared such beauty together in assisting ourselves to then. And then we were both on these other initiations and journeys for, I don't even know when the last time was I saw you before this. We were like, oh my gosh, it's been like, we did a VIP kind of like drop-in day with me.
A year and a half ago.
At the Magical Manifestation Mansion I had in California. And we were at our little alien type event with our good brother Amateo. What was that even called?
Channeling workshop.
Yeah, right? And before that, it had been a long time since we had those first experiences. So it's like just witnessing you. But I just want to say, like, I really appreciate that you have the ability to share with people the gifts of tapping into what's beyond our human construct of consciousness and the multidimensionality that's available, and the gifts that you utilize in supporting so many leaders and people on the planet to then bring forth those timelines now of really what we're doing is the new earth codes, the new earth frequency, operating from this highly evolved being with all these gifts and capacities that we bring forth. Prosperity. As we come into the new earth codes, we shed scarcity, lack, fear, sickness, disease, because we're operating from a high level of vibration in all that we are and doing. And speaking into this is what makes people go, oh, that does exist. I wasn't just dreaming, or I didn't have just this weird experience that I thought was just some weird dream experience. I actually am tapping into these other things. And you're one of the few people I feel like right now that I can really go there with, because you're such a beautiful mirror reflection for me, and also a teacher and also a student and all the things that we are. And I just have such love and appreciation for you.
I really appreciate that. It's been beautiful to reconnect and share more codes. And it's really fun to do that in life, and getting more people excited to nerd out on these codes and realize they're wizards and magical beings as well. So I'm really grateful. And for anyone listening, if you're still in a tough spot, reframe it. Use it as a launching pad, the rubber band that's going to fly you in a new direction.
See it for what
stronger than ever.
It is and for your launch.
It's all fuel that you can use in whatever way you wish with the perspective you choose. Yeah. So thank you all for listening. And it's been really beautiful to share some time.
Thank you so much, my brother. I love you. I love you guys. And hopefully this just gave you some context as to infinite possibilities that exist. And if you guys are, of course, wanting to know how to receive even more of these specifics from whatever Daniel does, and maybe joining us in India, who knows, we're still tuning into how many people get to join us for that, or some of the experiences that we get to do, then just know that there's nothing but love and amazingness to continue to receive. So thanks again for sharing the message and for being with us on the Awakened Being. Mwah. Thank you, my friends, for joining me for another amazing conversation to create change. To allow that change to take place, please integrate the tools so that you can really receive the change into your life. And I invite you to join us for even more in the Best Life Tribe and continue on your path and your journey. And remember who you really are, a divine being that is already whole, already worthy, completely deserving, and fully capable to now claim and live the life you love.